Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So as you know, Monday means it's Modern Monday here in Instant Deck Tech land, and we have a super spicy list to check out today. This is Obzedat's Vengeance, a new, really interesting take on Esper Control with some Reanimator sub-themes thrown in. Recently took Nikoras to a 5-0 finish in a competitive Modern League on Magic Online, so congrats to Nikoras on their finish with the deck. A quick reminder before we break down Obzedat's Vengeance for Modern. If you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So Obzedat's Vengeance is built around Obzedat Ghost Council, and this is a super powerful card. It's a 5/5 for 5, which is already pretty big. Plus, it drains for 2 every time it enters the battlefield, and it enters the battlefield a lot because it has a mechanic where at your end step, you can exile it, so it avoids sorcery speed removal, isn't going to get hit by Wraths or Maelstrom Pulses or whatever, and then it comes back in on your upkeep with haste, so you get to attack with it right away. So, Obzedat's Ghost Council is very powerful, very hard to deal with, but it feels a little expensive for Modern. However, this deck has a trick, and that is Goryo's Vengeance. So this might not seem intuitive at first glance, but there's actually a standard deck that used a very similar trick. So here's what we have going on. The idea is, instead of just casting Obzedat on turn 5, we're going to get a copy of Obzedat in our graveyard, and then use Goryo's Vengeance to reanimate it, which is pretty good on its own. It's potentially turn 2, hit you with a 5/5 since Vengeance gives a creature haste, drain for 2, so that's 7 damage on turn 2. Then the trick here is, at our end step, we're going to have 2 triggers. One is Goryo's Vengeance saying, I got to exile this Obzedat that I reanimated. The other is Obzedat saying, you may exile me at your end step and then I'll come back on your upkeep. So as long as we resolve the Obzedat trigger first, Goryo's Vengeance trigger doesn't really do anything. So even though it should be exiling Obzedat forever, since both are interacting with the exile zone, we kind of get around the downside of Goryo's Vengeance, and Obzedat Ghost Council is going to come back on our next upkeep, drain our opponent again, it has haste, hit our opponent again. So that's potentially, starting on turn 2, 7 damage, counting the drain, then on turn 3, that's 7 more, that's 14 damage already, and then we're only a couple of drains away from winning, or 1 more attack with Obzedat. So that's the main plan of the deck. So how do we get Obzedat Ghost Council in the graveyard? One of the sweetest ways is Drace Friend's Prodigy, which is actually not just an enabler, because we can loot and discard Obzedat, but it also is a backup plan with Goryo's Vengeance, because it's a legendary creature, we can get it back, and then if we can flip our Jace, which in the late game we should always have enough cards to flip it right away, we get to keep our Jace as a Planeswalker instead of it getting exiled with Goryo's Vengeance. So it's another way to break the exile at end of turn effect of Goryo's Vengeance. Plus it loots away our Obzedats. We also have a bunch of spells that can help. Thought Scour turn 1, mill a couple cards, hopefully at the Obzedat. Pieces of the Puzzle helps us find our other spells, our Goryo's Vengeance. Also potentially mill an Obzedat, and Collective Brutality, we can discard an Obzedat from our hand, as well as kind of duressing and killing something, or even draining if we need to. The rest of the deck, we have a couple more threats. Tasigur and Lingering Souls both take advantage of the fact that we're getting things in our graveyard. Tasigur can delve away fetch lands, spells that we've already cast, to be as low as 1 mana, and then it can fill our graveyard in the late game. While Lingering Souls, it's just so hard for some decks to beat, and we can flash it back if we end up discarding it or milling it. A ton of removal, starting with Fatal Push, Path to Exile in the 1 mana slot, a single ultimate price, and a Murderous Cut, which is also 1 mana a lot of times in this deck since we can delve away useless cards. Some Serum Visions to set things up on turn 1, and then the good black discard, 4 Inquisitions, 1 Thoughtseize. So apart from our actual synergy of reanimating the Obzedat and just killing our opponent, the rest of the deck is kind of focused on some light control elements, getting a removal spell like a Path to Exile out of our opponent's hand so it can't kill our Obzedat, a little bit of disruption, and some backup plans. The mana base, pretty straightforward. A bunch of fetch lands, fetching up shock lands, some Dark Slick Shores is a fast land, and then basics. In the sideboard, we get a bunch of counters: negate, ceremonious rejection, mostly for Tron/Eldrazi decks, dispel to fight through counters. Devour Flash is a nice way to deal with hexproof creatures if they happen to come up. Geist of St. Traff. There's been a small resurgence of Jeskai control decks, some with Geist lately. Celestial Purge is more removal. Fragmentize for artifacts and enchantments. Stonious Islands to lock out Affinity in some builds of Tron. Rain of Tears for lands, primarily against Tron, but can hit any lands. And remember, this can hit basic lands as well, which is a nice upside compared to Fulminator Mage. And then Damnations as a sweeper, and that is Obzedat's Vengeance for Modern. And that's our instant deck tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.